Welcome to Livestream, everybody. It's very good to be with you. Ooh. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sabotage. I'm telling y'all, it's sabotage. I feel like somebody sabotaged me this morning. Oh, you know what it's like when you buy something and you sure you know how it works, and then you get it, and then it doesn't do what you thought it would do, and then you're like, well, okay, I see. I thought it did A, but it really does B, which is not quite the same as A. I was confused. So then you're like, well, as long as I already spent my money, I'm going to try to get it to do B, and then it won't do B either. And now you're just like, what did I spend my money on? Nothing. Yeah, that's probably an experience many people in FPV are familiar with. Because you buy you buy a receiver, you buy a quadcopter, you buy a set of goggles, and you can't get them to do what you want them to do. I have to say that's not an experience that I am very familiar with, not because I'm particularly capable, just because I tend to stay in my lane. I like to just keep doing the things I'm already good at and then have everyone tell me how smart I am. And then occasionally someone says, can you do this? And I say, oh yeah, no problem. I'll do that. Then they're like, can you do it by such and such a date? And I'm like, oh yeah, there's plenty of time. And then, you realize that it's, that deadline is coming up and you haven't done it yet. And you're like, oh, geez, I got to sit down and bang that out. And then the thing that you said you could do, you're failing to do, and you don't have a lot of time, left to do it. That's an experience I tend to try to avoid. And that's been my life for the last 24 hours. And so I just want you guys to know it happens to me too. Except it's a little different when you're like, damn, I spent all this money and I can't get my drone to fly. Oh, well, I guess I'll just go to work. Versus when you've told someone that you can do a thing. But like, what would the world be like if everyone was honest about whether they could do things? If people said, can you do this? And you were like, I don't know, probably not. And then you just went back, who wants to live like that? Not me. But the beautiful thing, I have to say, these are the most frustrating times in my life, but also the most invigorating. Because if I hadn't told someone that by the way, I'm trying to distinguish between whether I said that I could do it or would do it, like, what did I represent? Versus, yeah, if I hadn't put myself in that situation, I probably would have just quit by now. I'd be like, this is stupid, what a waste, and just done something else. But now I have to figure it out. So, sucks to be me. How about overpromise and overdeliver? Everybody says underpromise and overdeliver. What about overpromise and just barely deliver by the skin of your teeth and hope nobody notices? You're like, yeah, of course, I always knew I would succeed. What about that? Overpromise and just barely deliver. That's actually that's actually the way. Because thing is, if you underpromise, then you don't get the job. This is a thing that I've struggled with. Is I'm a very pragmatic person, and if you say, "Can you do this?" Like I'm very wedded like married to accuracy in speech, and so if you say, how do you make this receiver talk to this flight controller? I will lay out all of the steps exactly right. And if you say, can you do this thing? I will tell you all of the reasons why I might be able to do it and why I might fail it to do it, and all of the things about it that I have done before and I'm pretty sure I could do, and all the things that I have never done before and I might not be able to do. And I'll say to you, I'll give it a chance. And you know what happens then? Somebody who walks in the door and says, oh yeah, no problem, I could do that. Done it a million times. Even if they're lying, they get the job. And then maybe they succeed or maybe they fail. But you never get a chance to prove that you can succeed if you're completely honest about your chances of success. And so I think that the secret to success, and I don't think this is a good thing, I don't think it speaks well about humanity, but it's just how it is. The secret to success is to lie about whether you can do something, and then just then somehow succeed despite the fact that you lied. And as long as you always succeed in the end and the customer is happy, then you keep getting away with it. The people that I am very confused by are the people who just go out and bullshit. We're going to go to the moon, and it's going to cost $5. And we're going to have a colony on the moon, and then Mars. And everybody's like, yay, I raised $800 trillion. And then, like, somehow it's 10, 15 years later, and nobody's on the moon, and they still have $800 trillion. And, you know, stock market go up. And I'm like, wait. Is lying about your capabilities, never doing anything, and still being successful is an option? Is that an option? How do I get in that club? My default club is to be completely honest about my capabilities and then not get the job.
That's your problem.
What's that, Blunty?
That's your problem. You're too honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to lie about projects and then make things happen regardless of what you know, like
that's what it is. That's what it is. And I have to keep my mouth shut when I'm in the room with a sales engineer or a quote unquote sales guy, because the customer will be like, can you do X? And he'll be like, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Not only can we do X, we've done, these other 3 things very similar to X. Not a problem. And I'm like, no, we haven't done those things. I told you over lunch once that I thought about doing those things. I have like a half-assed prototype of one of those things, and I have to just bite my tongue.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of times you're riding a line of like lying or just exaggerating, and then the customer forgets 3/4 of what they asked for in the original thing, and it does what they really needed it to do, and that was fine in the first place, right? It's really frustrating. Yeah,
it's very frustrating. Are you, Blunty, also kind of like a straight shooter, even to your own detriment?
Yes,
seems like you would be. Yeah.
Yes, when you're realistic. The thing is, you never disappoint anyone if you're realistic about your expectations. They're only really happy with your work because you delivered exactly what you said, or you figured out extra stuff you could do that you didn't know. Mm-hmm. But overpromising is not a big thing for me because I don't really care about getting the job. When you care about getting the job, it's much more important to overpromise.
Yeah, and it's why engineers need a sales engineer, a sales manager between them and the customer, because the engineers will be like, well, I have a 14% chance of finishing this by Q2 2027 with a budget of X. And then he needs to process that and then know just how much he can bullshit the customer and still not. I mean, ultimately, as long as the customer is happy, then and no one goes to prison, right? Eventually, you lie so much you go to prison. But the amount of lying you can get away with in sales is higher than I would have thought.
Yeah, anyway. I would just say also, like, the other thing you can do is make a big company and then pseudo lie to investors over calls about information that's happening. I've never heard any company do that that's related to FPV, but I'm just saying that's a thing you could do as well. That's another angle to go, right?
You're not going to name names, though, right, Blunty? Because that would potentially be defamation.
Correct.
But yes, I also have listened to investor reports and heard companies say things and thought, I know that's not true. And yet somehow you go public, you make $50 million. I'm doing it wrong, man. Anyway. All right. Well, enough bullshitting. Thank you guys for tolerating and hopefully enjoying. That's not okay. I don't want that to be happening during my stream. Hold on. This is my life, guys. Okay, this is my life. I want you to understand. Here's what I've been working on. This is I am just now. I'm going to close Telegram in a second. I'm just now getting a reply from the guy I've been working with to try to make this project work. This is the reply. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh well. Okay. I'm gonna close Telegram. I guess it's fucking 1 a.m. in China though, so Thank you for responding. Oh, man. Oh, you got to laugh or you're going to cry. Let's answer questions. Let's answer questions from the chat. That's what we're actually here for. I got a super chat here from JNat1488, just dropping a $5 to say thanks. By the way, this is your username, enjoying my Vapor X and JB sub 250, both with HG0. Thank you for $5. Glad you're enjoying it. Glad you're liking the JB 250 and the Vapor X5. And hopefully that's because I recommended them. And yeah, I always like to hear people enjoying the products that I put out there. I actually was very, like literally I drove to Sarasota. I had a day of meetings with Get FPV, and then I drove home. So for those who are like, oh, I really thought I fucking closed Telegram. Hold on. Telegram's still open in the background. Where is it? There we go. Quit Telegram. Yeah, but I was in fact in Sarasota recently and went to Get FPV. And is this squished? Does this look a little squished? I feel like my head is not that shape. I think this picture is a little bit squished. Is my head that shape normally? Also, I have kind of a gimpy hand. Maybe they did it so I looked thinner. It could be. Yeah, so if you get a Get FPV order and on the packing slip it says happy flying and has my signature, that's legit. That's legit. I signed a couple of packing slips, so I figured you guys would like that. So thank you. It was nice to get out there and yeah, see some of the products with my name on them. GX12 or Boxer, which should I get? I'm upgrading from the Pocket. You should consider the T15 as well if you're considering the Boxer. GX12, Boxer, T15. The GX12 is my personal daily driver. I like the size. It's just a little bit smaller than the Boxer. However, the ergonomics mean that it still fits pretty well in the hands for me. And I like the number of controls, and I love that it's dual band. It's 900 and 2.4 gigahertz, and it does Gemini, although I think for most normal users, Gemini is a nice to have, not a need to have. Okay? T15. The T15. Hang on, I got a T15. Let me grab it. There it is, and a Boxer. Oh, look at that. Got a little bit of everything here. T15, also dual band, but not Gemini. It's one or the other, but not both at the same time. Ooh, I got the peel. I always peel these. They bug me. Ergonomics, it's got the AGO2 gimbals, which are a little bit of an upgrade from the AGO1s. They have just internally just a little better electronics. I'm not actually 100% sure what they do better, but they're supposedly better. Low noise gimbals, don't need ADC filtering, supposedly. And they have the ability to do left-right limit adjustment, whereas the AGO1s just go up-down, but left-right is always full throw. And it's just a little slimmer. I would take the T15 over the Boxer these days. Again, because it's dual band, and it's nice to have the option to run a 900 megahertz receiver if that's useful for you, and a 2.4 gigahertz receiver. Boxer is 2.4 gig only, which for most people is going to be fine. Most people don't need 900 megahertz, but it's a little bit thicker and a little bit squarer. Some people prefer it. I also like on the T15, these buttons can be swapped out. They come with a base plate. They can be swapped out for regular switches, which if I used the T15 as a daily driver, I would do that, but I just don't. So of those, I think any of them is a solid choice. They're all great radios. The GX12 is my choice, but some people would prefer the big... Oh, right. T15. Big color touchscreen. That's also kind of a selling point. I think a lot of people these days would be most happy with the T15. The size is not that big. Very good ergonomics, and they will like the big color touchscreen. personally, I don't find that I like, maybe I'm just an old guy who's used to command line interfaces and terminals. I don't mind the black and white text interface of the GX12. Wow, the gimbal really does feel nice. The throttle especially has a really nice little damping on it. I don't mind the text screen. I kind of actually like it. Feels right. And the smaller screens are a little easier to see in the sun, although this gets plenty bright, and easier on the batteries. Like whenever people say which of these radios should I get? Like that's like, well, I don't know. It just depends on your priorities. Like, you know, but those are some of the major selling points of the radios. Robot. I hate it when people say these things. And no, I'm not going to get on a rant and spend 10 minutes ranting. I feel the risk of going on a rant, but these radios cost $30 to $50 to manufacture. They're charging $175 to $200. The profit margins are insane. First of all, that is just objectively not true. Maybe the BOM cost of these bill of materials, BOM. Please don't. I won't say that word again. Maybe the bill of materials cost is around $50, but like if you look at the chips that are on them, the screens, etc., saying that they cost $30 to manufacture is absolute BS. That is BS. That is not true. Someone could sit down, take this apart, and kind of put together an estimate of the bill of materials cost. It is definitely not $50. That's like, but even if it had $50 of parts in it, that's like if I go to a Michelin star restaurant and I have a steak, right? Or I have some kind of pastry, and you look at that and you say, what? Like a steak is a bad example because like, you know, Wagyu beef could actually be pretty expensive, right? But you give me this delicious food that a chef lovingly prepared, a chef with 50 years. That's maybe not too much experience. Probably not 50 years. He's an old chef. You see what I'm getting at? And they charge you $250 a plate, and you look at the plate and you go, well, that's only $15 in food. Like, shut up. You can't just look at the bill of materials cost and say, oh, the profit margin is insane. They have a factory, they have employees, they have yada, 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 yada. And I could tell you the profit margin on these things, it's typically, as a rule of thumb in FPV, the manufacturer gets about half the retail cost. So if something costs $100, the manufacturer sold it to the store for around $50, and then the store marks, no wait, that's too much. That's not right. The store is typically getting about 25% margin, and then the manufacturer is typically getting about 25% margin. It could be a little more or a little less, but those are good round numbers. So make that math work for you. Go ahead, Blunty.
It completely depends on the company. Like traditionally, TBS has always had like closer margins, and then like Chinese companies who really want you to buy stuff have way shorter margins.
Yes.
I ordered for my own company for like I ran an FPV store for a short amount of time, and when I ordered flight controllers from Chinese companies, it was more like 50% margin for me on a cheap Chinese flight controller.
So you paid $25 and retail was $50.
Correct, but and that's not even on a giant order. That's like 10 FCs or something, because they just really want you to sell the stuff, and they don't,
Yeah.
I'm sure they're making money. But like a TBS was more like a 30% margin or 25%. Like you said, I think most of the companies we know are more closer to that 25%. Radio Master, stuff like that. But
like, honestly, if something has a 50% margin, like that's generous, but I don't think it's insane, and especially in this world where it's awfully hard to run a company and stay in business, Never mind R&D costs. Never mind. Like, I like this project that I've been working on, right? I have spent a preposterous amount of money going down dead ends, buying products, finding out that those products are not going to do what I need them to do. Maybe I can return them. Maybe I can't. Maybe I have to eat them or try and save them for something else. At the end of the day, if I succeed at what I'm trying to do, I will have something that then I will potentially be able to make money on, but I will god dang charge whatever I think is fair, and the amount of time and money I wasted going down dead ends will 100% be incorporated into that. Not only that, but the future dead ends that I will go down on the next project will also be incorporated into it, because I still have to pay the rent even when I'm working on something that's a dead end. So I don't want to hear any complaining about profit margins. Buy the thing, don't buy the thing. If you don't think it's worth your money, don't buy it. If you think it's worth the money, buy it and enjoy it. 200. Also, last thing, because I said I wasn't going to go on a big rant. $200-ish for a radio of this quality? Shut up. That is, even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, before everything got inflated, that's an insanely good value compared to what else was out there, the Futabas and Spectrums of the world, where they're charging you $500, $600, $1,000 for a radio that doesn't have half the capabilities. So it's good. Moving on. Oh, let's see. I was wondering if the AZ2807 1350 kV motor would be a good choice for a mid-range 7-inch that can freestyle. Yes. 2807 is fine. 2809 is maybe a little better. As you point out, they're using 7.5-inch props. 1350 is a good kV. For a 7-inch long-range cruiser, around 1100 kV. I assume we're talking about 6S batteries. 1350 kV is good for like a little bit of a mix of cruising and freestyle. And then if you want a 7-inch like Ripper, then you're going to go up to like 1800 kV in that range. But you're going to get much shorter flight times. And you're going to want bigger motors too. You could go up to maybe a 30 millimeter motor. I don't know, 30 what? 30, I don't know exactly, but 2807, 2809 is fine. You're going to be fine. I've seen people run way back in the day when 7 inches was just starting to be a thing. I saw people running 7 inches on 2207 motors, and they did okay. They would have done better on a 28 millimeter motor, but they didn't like blow up a 22 millimeter motor, so it was okay. How dare YouTube close the chat to show an advert? I'm sorry. Were you shown an advert? You should not be seeing inline advertisements during this live stream. Are you guys seeing inline advertisements during this stream? I have a button at the top of my screen to insert an ad, but I don't do that, and I tell YouTube not to insert ads. Okay, good. Mobile is showing ads. That's weird. That's very weird. I believe I have that turned off. Monetization. Mid-roll. Look, I told you. Mid-roll ads, manual. I have mid-roll ads set to manual, and I have not hit that button. That's weird.
Brandon said it's popping over the chat, not the video, which is interesting. It's like a chat ad or something.
Maybe those people have some kind of a virus on their phone.
Yeah, Kilo said chat was replaced with an ad on mobile. Apparently, there's some kind of way they're doing ads now where they're injecting it over in chat instead of over the video.
I want to encourage everybody. Wait for it. I want to encourage everybody to check out this video. By Adam Conover. It's an interview with Cory Doctorow, and you can read the title here. In the interest of not getting censored by YouTube, I'm going to not read the title. It's got a star in it. I really encourage everybody. It's almost a 2-hour interview, and that may be more attention span than some people have, but it is extremely relevant and entertaining and interesting. Highly recommend. A little depressing. If you don't like Adam Conover, find one of Cory Doctorow's other speeches about the topic of blankification. Anyway. What's the outlook on DJI using third parties to sell air units? DJI is already sold, well, allegedly DJI has already sold a drone and a camera using a third party. We know that this drone and this camera are essentially identical inside and out. They also demonstrated that the camera worked with DJI licensed accessories, which if the camera was just some random third party, it seems unlikely that it would have done that. So the implication and the assumption is that DJI is selling these products through a third party to get around some kind of import bans. What are the odds of DJI doing that with an air unit? I think the odds are higher than like a DJI drone. Like a DJI Mavic is extremely recognizable. A DJI air unit is much less recognizable and much more likely to slip through. We know that DJI has done something like that with Caddx and the Caddx air units. In the RunCam link, DJI manufactures those. Caddx and RunCam do not manufacture those. I'm not even going to hedge that by saying like allegedly. I'm just as convinced as I could be that's true. So we don't know whether DJI will decide to do that. It just depends. Like DJI has had a perspective in some sense of, fine, America, you don't want us, you can't have us, right? So we'll see how that plays out after December and after DJI goes on the entities list, which in my opinion is an inevitability. I don't want to take off FPV says, is everything from DJI banned or just the drones? On December 24th, the audit of DJI, the security audit that was mandated in December 2024 will not have happened because there isn't time for it to happen and no one has stepped up to say they're going to do it. So I think it's an inevitability that the audit will not happen. At that point, DJI will go on the entities list, which will mean that they cannot get any more FCC certifications, among other things. Existing DJI equipment will not lose its FCC certificates immediately, but no new DJI product will come into the country. Like O4 air units could still be imported because they already have their FCC certificate. The other thing is that in 2025, Customs stopped importing DJI products under the Uyghur Protection Act or something like that. So even though those products had FCC certificates, Customs was not allowing them to come into the country, to the point where people who sent their DJI product off for DJI Care couldn't get the product back into the country, even though it was their product that they had already purchased. Customs stopped it at the border. So there are various ways that DJI is being pushed out of the American market by the American government. So it will remain legal to continue using the products you already have in your hands. I think that it is unlikely to be a world where existing products are illegal to use, but a world where no more products can be gotten, I think, is the future that we are most likely to see. Okay. I'm designing my own VTOL. Is there any flight controllers that are made for VTOL that you would recommend? Any iNav flight controller or any ArduPilot flight controller can do VTOL. End of story. Just pick one. ArduPilot has a little bit more capability than iNav, but both of them are capable of doing it. I built a VTOL airplane that took off vertically and then transitioned the motors to forward flight using iNav. Yeah. It's not hard. You don't need a special flight controller to do VTOL. Betaflight can't do it because Betaflight is a little bit more stripped down. I bought the Avata 1 with DJI goggles, Integra, and RC remote too. Should I have just bought the Avata 2? I mean, the Avata 1 is a little older. I don't know that it... Like, I thought it was still a pretty good quad. The Avata 2 is a little bit better in some ways, but the Avata 1 doesn't suck. I don't think you made a mistake. If I flash BlueJay to the SpeedyBee BLHeli-S 60 amp ESC, does the higher PWM frequency cause the ESC to run hotter? Could it fail more easily? No, quite the opposite, actually. Higher PWM frequencies... on small drones, for sure, higher PWM frequencies use less current and build up less heat. I don't know if that's... I know that's true on like micros down in the 65 millimeter size. On larger ones, I don't think so. I don't know if that's true, but long story short, No. Higher PWM frequency will not make the ESC run hotter and will not make it fail more easily. I want to get DJI. I live in Europe. Should I wait for the Goggles G4 or should I get the G3 now? There is no indication of when the G4 will or won't arrive. So I don't know why you would wait for a product. You could be waiting a year. You could be waiting 2 years potentially. No one knows. If we were in the window where the G4 release seemed imminent, I might say maybe it's worth waiting, but we are not in that window. As far as I know, there have not even been rumors of the G4. The G3 and the Integra really only just came out, so I think I would just go for it. How much do you clean up before the live stream? Asks Mike Julio. Thanks for being a patron, Mike. My workstation is usually a disaster. Oh, we believe it's a green screen. Do you have a secret workstation that gets rolled away? I clean up a little bit, not much though. Like, I generally try to have the floor be clear, and then have stuff. If there's stuff out on the table, I just leave it out. But no, you pretty much see it in the state that it's in. Pretty much. Thank you, WC Lugston, for a $2 super chat, who says, thanks for the tutorials and the information. Thank you, WC Lugston. Thanks to Roshan Podaval for a $10 super chat. I just got some beta FPV tiny whoops. I'm confused about angle mode. Seems like after a crash and disarm, true level is lost until I replug. Yeah, so Roshan, the issue there is that the accelerometer can go out of calibration if it receives a shock. That is not true for all flight controllers and all quads. It sounds like you have a particularly sensitive flight controller. Or maybe you're crashing particularly hard. You are correct that crash recovery would not work for you, because crash recovery requires the accelerometer to have an accurate level. And now this would be the part where I tell you how to fix it. Learn to fly in acro mode. That's how to fix it. If you have a flight controller where it's constantly going out of level when you smack it, there is a stick command you can do that you can reset the accelerometer after a crash. It is, well, let me look it up. I think I remember it, but I don't want to get it wrong. It's throttle up, yaw left, and pitch back, I believe. It might be throttle up, yaw right. One is the gyro, one's the accelerometer. Calibrate gyro. Oh, no, I was completely wrong. Completely wrong. Gyro is down left. Don't do gyro. You want accelerometer. Oh, I was right. Up left, down. Yes, I was right. The gyro is down left. Okay. And then compass is up right. Okay, got it. I wasn't completely insane. Calibrate accelerometer, assuming mode 2. Left stick up left, right stick down. And that will calibrate the accelerometer. So if you crash and you want to get back up in the air, obviously the quad has to be flat and level when you do this, though. Can you use a 5-inch with prop guards as a Cinewhoop? If you're flying a 5-inch indoors, there's going to be in a typical residential or office construction, you're going to have a ton of prop wash and you're going to blow shit everywhere. The curtains are going to go flying. If there's any papers out on a desk, they're going to go flying. And if you fly down a narrow, well, a normal hallway, you're going to get a lot of bobble because so much wind is coming off the props. Generally, when you're indoors, smaller is better, not because of your ability to pilot, but because of the amount of prop wash and wind that it makes. Yeah. But you can fly a 5-inch with prop guards inside, but it's going to be harder to get smooth, steady flight compared to something like a 3-inch. Karolskowski. Thank you for 25 Polish zloty. How can I simulate a Taurus X8 class heavy drone with red camera and liftoff Velocidrone? And does flying a smaller drone help prepare for it? Yes. Flying, I have to tell you, I have flown like a 24-inch Cinelifter. And the fact that you're flying a very expensive, very heavy, very fragile drone, mentally it affects you. But the actual flying of it is not that different. Now, if you get going really fast and try and do a sharp turn, it's going to handle very differently. If you try and do a power loop, you're going to need to do a much bigger loop with a heavy drone, and you're going to need to get back on the throttle much sooner so you don't plow it into the ground, right? But basically what you do when you fly a heavy drone is you just fly it very conservatively at first, and you slowly feel out exactly how it flies relative to the 5-inch that you're used to. But the basics of the controls are very similar and very familiar. It's not that different. Imagine that you drove a car. Well, maybe you don't have to imagine. You drive a car years and years. You're very capable of driving a car. And one day you rent an RV or you rent a big moving truck. As you're pulling out of the lot, you're very aware of like your blind spots. Oh, I'm doing a left turn. I want to make sure I don't clip the curb. And as you pull into a parking lot, you're going real slow and you're being super careful. But fundamentally, driving that truck or that RV is not that different from driving the car that you drive all the time. You just have to be a lot more careful when you first start out until it becomes second nature. As far as simulating it, what you want to do is you want to simulate the weight and you want to simulate the thrust to weight ratio. But I'm not sure I could give you instructions for like getting an accurate reflection of that. You know, it's going to be very different. Try and simulate the weight and then try and simulate the thrust to weight ratio if you can figure out what that is. And it may get you in the ballpark. But, yeah, just be careful when you first start flying it. Don't just immediately start trying to do that and just plow it into the ground. Slowly learn the capabilities of the drone and the limits. The Sky Zombie, thank you for $5. I crashed my new 5-inch 04 Pro build and the 2 bottom mounting screw holes ripped out of the camera housing. Any suggestions? Well, I guess you got 2 more screws to hold it in, because changing out the 04 Pro camera is expensive. Maybe you could figure out a way just to kind of like stick it in place with double-sided tape and some screws in the remaining holes. I used to know a guy, when he broke his camera mount, he used E6000 adhesive and he just glued his camera in place. There you go, done. I mean, all of that is better than throwing out an 04 camera that is otherwise functional. Yeah, hot glue. Exactly. Thank you, Binkoro, for $5 and another $5 in the super chat. Binkoro asks, everything works about 40% of the time. As other times, either 1 or 2 motors are not spinning. When armed, it feels like there's more to this question. Blunty, is there more to this question? Let me search the chat. Binkoro, no.
I mean, there's another.
Yeah, I just see 2 messages from Binkoro.
Yeah.
It says, everything works 40% of the time. That's an odd way to sort of come into the question. At other times, 1 or 2 motors are not spinning when armed, or the GPS doesn't gather sats. Could this be due to the 3S battery not providing enough power? Should I use a 4S battery? I don't know what motors you have. So I would think that most motors would spin fine on a 3S. But it really depends on the KV. GPS gathering sats has nothing to do with any of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't know any specs or any information here, but yeah, like you said,
also,
the main thing is like.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If it's not spinning when the motors aren't spinning when armed, that can be because of like ESC settings or you're too low voltage for the KV of the motor, but. That's typically not going to be that big of an issue, and like you're going to see a stutter and it's going to be inconsistent maybe or something like that, but that would be like on BlueJay 0.21 if you're on BlueJay 0.21.
Yeah, I have to fix this. I can't have it on the floor. I'm looking like trash. Get that off my table. Also, what VTX are you using that can't take 4S voltage? What are you from the past? Are you a time traveler? Yeah.
You can always email jb@joshuabardwell.com with more information, and we can give you a better answer.
That is true. That is true. Dimitri asks, please give some advice for a beginner pilot. Where do you configure your rate profile? In EdgeTX or in Betaflight? In Betaflight, always. There are very few circumstances where I would choose to configure my rates in EdgeTX. I generally want the flight controller handling that. If only because the rate curve, yeah. I want that to be tied to the quadcopter. So if I have a racing drone versus a freestyle drone, I'm going to have slightly different rates. Actually, not slightly different. They're radically different. I want that stored on the quadcopter. So I don't want to store that in the controller. I want the controller to be linear, 1000 to 2000, and let the flight controller do the rest. The other thing is that the flight controller has more nuanced control over the rate curve, whereas EdgeTX's rate curves are relatively simplistic. So, yeah. JRM250 asks, with DJI virtually banned and Walksnail's future uncertain, should I pick HD0 for their goggle versatility or risk being stuck on the old Walksnail, or pick analog, considering getting your 3-inch build? First of all, I don't think Walksnail's future is uncertain. When the Protos drone came out and introduced the Ascent system, my initial reaction was, Walksnail, WTF? Why would you do this? What does this mean for your existing system? And partially that's because that was my reaction, and partially because when I make a video, some of what I'm doing in the video is telling you what I think, and some of what I'm doing in the video is trying to sort of anticipate and reflect what you're going to think, and give voice to it, and maybe then analyze or give a response to it. Obviously, if I disagree with what I think you're going to think as a viewer, then I might say it and then like argue against it, right? But that when it came out, I was like, WTF, and I was like, that's what everybody else is going to think too. I want to give voice to that. I've since got a clearer picture of where I think they're going to go with the Ascent system. The price of the Ascent VTX and camera being $35, and Cadix says that is a permanent pricing, that is not just promotional pricing. Who knows if that'll, obviously the future may hold many things, but at least their messaging right now is that it's permanent pricing. I've heard rumors that a Ascent GT VTX is coming, and an Ascent standalone VRX is coming. And it does seem like they're focusing the Ascent line more on the sort of industrial wink wink areas versus hobbyists. And if there's a clear differentiation in the market, so when a company releases a second product line and it overlaps with their first product line, it's normal, I think, to think, well, why would they have two overlapping product lines? The new one is obviously going to replace the old one. That's why else would they do it? When a company releases a new product line and there is a clear differentiation between them, like that the Ascent line is higher latency, longer range, lower cost for industrial uses, commercial, military. And the normal Walksnail Avatar line is for hobbyists, right? FPV, low latency, it's shorter range, higher cost. Okay, nothing wrong with having two well-differentiated product lines. So I don't think the future of Walksnail is uncertain, is my point. Here is Blunty sharing this. Open Acrobat, you.
Yeah, you're referencing the GT Pro and the VRX, and you mentioned industry, quote industry.
Yeah, quote unquote industry.
Quote unquote industry, but my understanding of what industry here means is enterprise / military, sort of like you suggested, right? Which is basically not us.
Because Chinese companies can't sell direct, can't market to the military. The government will shut them down, put them in jail. So they have all these, and I don't want to be too blatant about pointing the finger at Walksnail and being like, we all know what you're doing there, buddy. You know, give them the option of plausible deniability. But like, when you see Ascent GT Pro industry, yes, it's for industry, but also, wink, wink. If it ends up on the battlefield, hey, what can we do?
So to be clear, this is a 4-watt VTX. This is 4 watts, 36 dBm.
Looks very familiar.
Yeah, and then there's also a
communicate. Whoa! Communication frequency 4.9 to 6.4 gigahertz. That's very interesting. That's not the frequency typically used by hobbyists. No, sir. That's wider. Go ahead, Blunty. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say, though, so regardless of what we think, right, and where this product ends up, I think it is interesting to see that, like, hey, they took that chip. You know, we've been told now that the original Protos and the light VTX that are coming out are 100 milliwatts. So, you know, that's what we get at 100 milliwatts. People talk about range issues and other issues. But if you could slap a big old bunch of power on there next to that chip, you know, that's kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's good that they're doing something with that product. Where it goes, who knows?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of curious where you were going to go with the whole conversation, because, like, we talked about Ascent, but, like, you still think there's future in the old... Like, I still haven't seen any promise that something's going to happen with the old system, right?
I mean, I think that... So, it all depends on the kind of performance they can get out of the Ascent system. If the Ascent system can be made to perform on par with the existing system or better, then I think the existing system is cooked, right? Why would they keep it around? But if there's a if the Ascent system is targeted at low cost, and that means that it always has higher latency, then the existing system might have a motivation to stay around.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, I feel like the existing system is just going to be what it is. It will never. It's not going to get better because they've had years of not getting better.
Well, that's true.
Something new.
No, right, absolutely.
Like DJI's magic is that, like, there's promise in DJI because suddenly they're going to come out with a new unit and it'll work with
and it just keeps getting better and better and better.
And it just keeps getting better. And instead, Walksnail's way of doing this is like, hey, we found a new chip, but it can only do this stuff, and we're going to push it to a new market, right? And we're going to have our old chip available. And I just can't see that getting better because they've kept saying.
No, I don't think. No.
Yeah.
I don't think that the existing Walksnail system, the Avatar system, is going to get any better. Like, they may release a 4-watt GT VTX for the Avatar system, and it's going to have more range. But the fundamental technology, I think, has been squeezed as much as it's likely to get squeezed. They released the racing mode. That was pretty cool, right? But you go down in resolution and you go down in latency still, you know. I don't think that they're... Whereas DJI, every time they have a generation, you go from Vista to 03 to 04, each time it's like, shoot, it's just 15% better in every way, or something like that. And Walksnail, I don't think they're going to get just better. I think they've squeezed it as much as they can. The other thing, I mean, that's just my guess. But as you point out, Blinty, they haven't gotten significantly better, like, in a while. The other thing is that the Artisan chip that the Avatar system is based on, eventually that's not going to be around anymore. Now, who knows? Like, the MPU 6000 gyro has been end of life as long as I've been in FPV, and they still make it. So, who knows? But, like, I think that's valid. 2.5 megahertz bandwidth, extremely low bit rate. So that would be 50, 25, 12, 6, 3 megabits per second. It's supposed to have frequency hopping. So it's a very narrow bandwidth with frequency hopping. Huh. I wonder what that could be good for. Avoiding jamming? Yes. A hobbyist isn't going to want to fly at 3 megabits per second, right? No.
Yeah, I think we're hopeful that we can get the Ascent system to be good. But I think Cadex's pitch for this thing the whole time has been, this is for new pilots, and Avatar will continue to be around. So I just think you have to know, as a Walksnail user, it's likely to be the case that you'll be able to buy the same quality of stuff as long as they can get artisan chips and produce you VTXs. You're not going to get much in the way of new features and stuff for Walksnail unless they can, Avatar, unless they can do it. They're going to try, but there's not much they can do. And then Ascent may or may not be something to move to, but likely won't be, because it's going to be aimed at newer pilots and higher latency. Like, that feels like where the ecosystem's going to be at, right? And so people are like, we're losing DJI, which is going to be the moving forward thing, and and Walksnail can't really move forward because there's nowhere to move forward to for us. So yeah, I think, like, to me, that's sort of where the core of the situation comes from. It's like, what do you do?
Yeah. So going back to the question, with DJI banned and Walksnail uncertain, debatable whether the future of Walksnail is uncertain, but you decide. Should I pick HD0 for their goggles, versatility, or risk being stuck on the old Walksnail? I think that I would advise people not to, in the United States, not to buy DJI today, because the future is very uncertain, and it's uncertain whether it will be, like, already people can't forget air units as much as they would like. So I think that's only going to get worse after December of this year. Even if it stays the same, I think it would be questionable whether I would advise somebody to, like, buy the DJI system today. Some people will, and they'll be happy, but I think, 2 years ago, if someone said, I'm thinking of buying DJI, I would have been like, yeah, go, absolutely. And now I just don't, I'm like, well, maybe that's not the right decision, which is weird. Walksnail, I think it's fine. I think the Walksnail Avatar system likely has enough of a future in it. It is currently widely available and in active production. They are just about to release the new GT2 VTX. They have new product development. Higher powered VTX is not a radically different product, but the product line has life in it. The heart is still beating. I wouldn't discourage anyone from buying the Walksnail system. Should you get HD0 goggles? I think for myself, HD0 is a great system for racing. There are people who use it as their system for all kinds of other flying as well, but for micros and for racing are the two places it really excels. And if you are really into micro drones and or really into racing, I absolutely think you should go with the HD0 goggles and HD0 video transmitters. If you are into long range stuff, I think analog is the clear choice. You can do long range with Walksnail and HD0, but I think analog is, because you could just go get a 5-watt analog VTX and just, get as much range as you want, and you can't do that with Walksnail or DJI or HD0. And likewise, for like fun flying bando, etc., I think Walksnail or analog are the place I would go for that. Hello from your new neighbor in Maryville, Tennessee. Can we fly together for $5? You never know when I'll be out flying. But you don't have to pay me $5 for it. If we end up in the same place, we'll fly together. Best place to find me is at a 533 race. That's when I mostly get out, or I'll just sit in my yard and fly. But don't show up at my yard. No offense. Not uninvited. If you're in Maryville, Tennessee, though, that is near the home of 533. So that's exciting. Although Evan Turner lives in downtown now, and I'm not sure where his warehouse is. I think he has a warehouse now. He used to run the company out of his dad's garage, but his dad might have got tired of that. Or he just got too big. It's a very successful company. The HD0 Plus goggles any good? I'm new to analog. That depends on how much they are these days. What's the HDO Plus selling for? No, do not buy these. Do not buy them. $650. They aren't a bad goggle. I feel like you can do much better for that price, though. Although, these days, maybe not. The HD Zero Goggle 2. Oh my God. Nope, that's not the US price. That's the international price. So $650 for the HD Zero Goggles 2 if you're outside the US. Or inside the US, I believe it's closer to $750. $779. Oh, it sucks so much. I would 1,000 times pay $779 for the HD Zero Goggles 2 over the Fat Shark Dominator HD Zero Plus. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, this doesn't come with a receiver module, does it? I'm just going to verify that. I believe that's true. Yeah, no. So you still have to spend another $100 on a module. Oh, $170. No, 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 no. No, not in any world. Because you're going to pay $650 for the Fat Shark goggles, and you're going to pay another $168 for a receiver module. Okay, maybe you get a cheaper one. It's only $100. These are price parity. This is price parity. The HD Zero Goggles 2 is so much better as a goggle, even as an analog goggle, than the Fat Shark Dominator HDL Plus. Am I, like, missing something here, chat? Tell me if I'm, like, overlooked some difference.
Is HDO Plus the new HDO 2? Is that what we're... I don't know the way they work.
I think that's the latest Fat Shark goggle that is almost completely indistinguishable from previous ones because they haven't changed their design in 10 freaking years. Although I do believe in this one they changed their menu interface. They, like, upgraded the menu interface. But my God, how much life can you wring from a frickin' injection mold? Like, Fat Shark's injection molds are back at the factory like, I'm tired, boss. You know?
People are saying that analog on the HD Zero Goggles 2 sucks. Is that correct?
No, not at all. Who is saying that? Someone who's never used them?
I don't know. Somebody says HD Zero doesn't have diversity, though.
Doesn't matter. And yet somehow it's still on par or better than the best analog modules I've ever used. How? I don't know.
Yeah, another person says if you get goggles and HD Zero goggles and decide to add analog, you'll be buying a VRX anyway.
That is not true. The HD Zero Goggle 2 has a built-in analog receiver module. And it's great. The only downside, so not having diversity. What's the advantage of diversity? The advantage of diversity is I have two antennas. And so when my drone moves from here over to there, or if the signal bounces, I pick up the signal. The problem with diversity is that when you combine those signals back together, there's all this room for things to get screwed up. So you have diversity, and then you have white flashes as the goggle switches between the two antennas. So then to fix the white flashes, you come up with the fusion modules, rapid fire, TBS fusion, etc. But then the fusion algorithm means that sometimes you get a black scrolling screen. So then they put an option in the menu to turn the fusion off and go back to diversity. Hey, you know what? What if we just got rid of diversity and had one really good receiver and we didn't screw around with all this nonsense? The diversity and the fusion and all that stuff was to make up for the fact that the receiver was not as good as it could be. HD Zero, one excellent receiver. The only downside is, with diversity, if I have two antennas and I fly my drone from here over to there, I pick it up on the second antenna. With the HD Zero goggles, and I say this having flown with the HD Zero goggles extensively over the course of the last 4 months, if the drone is over here and it flies over there, your signal gets shitty. What could you possibly do? Oh, I guess I just will lose signal. No, you turn your head. I do that. You do that anyway with diversity, because most people run diversity with an Omni and a patch. And as soon as they get sufficiently far away, the Omni is useless anyway. Most people are flying only on one antenna, even when they have diversity. And when you fly from here over to there, and you're in the middle of the bando, so your Omni isn't getting much signal, you turn your head just like you do with the HD0 goggles. The only people for whom the lack of diversity is really going to be a big deal would be people who run 2 big patch antennas. And they want those antennas, one of them's here and one of them's there, so they have a slightly wider beam, and they don't want to move their head. Or they have a fixed ground station, like their antenna is mounted on a tripod or on top of their car, and they don't want to have to rotate it. Those people can benefit from diversity. But a typical FPV pilot wearing their goggles on their head, the diversity is not missed at all. And I got to tell you, having just one good antenna that doesn't do any frame combining, any fusion BS, it just gives you an image. And then when the image gets weak, it goes to snow. And when the image is strong, it's clear. And if I fly off the beam, I just turn my head. It's shockingly refreshing. And it's great. I'll put the receiver in the HD0 goggles too up against any other receiver, Fusion, Rapid Fire, etc., in terms of sensitivity and ability to pull in an image. It's great. Enough said? Blunty, any other comments that I should take note of before we move on?
I mean,
do you actually notice the deinterlacer? No. I don't think it's fluff. I do think it exists, but the deinterlacer, like when you're flying, you're just flying. It's really only if you like pixel peeping the DVR, I think you would really notice the difference. All right, anyway. The pricing on those HDO Pluses is insane. The HD0 goggle, never mind that then you could also fly HD0. There is no world in which you should pay $650 for the HD0 Plus and another $100 for a module when you could get the when you could get the HD0 goggles too for the same price. Go ahead, Blint.
Should we be comparing O4X as well while we're here?
Sure. Yeah. SkyZone Sky O4X. So again, we'll look at the Get FPV pricing because I assume most of my viewers are in the US. They're a little bit cheaper outside the US. $766, basically the same price. Again, I think the HD02 for the money is the best analog goggle you can buy today. Now, compared to the Fat Sharks, at least you get a receiver module with the SkyZone. And it's a decent receiver module. They're a little smaller than the HD0s. Some people may find them more comfortable. If you said to me, I'm going to buy the HD0 Plus, I'd be like, you're insane. If you said, I don't like the HD0 goggles, I'm going to buy the Sky O4X instead, I'd be like, yeah, okay, to each his own. That's a solid goggle as well. Also should mention the Sky O40, which is basically just the cheaper version of the Sky O4X. $500 in the US, if you can get it. Frankly, I would take the Sky O40 over the Sky 4X. It's got a couple difference. I don't even remember what the differences are. It's got a couple little, like mostly negligible differences in the specs. And is $200 cheaper, $260 cheaper. I think it's worth it.
It's important to mention that, like, with the tariff situation right now, you should really be shopping around and comparing prices where you can get them. We've discussed this before. I like to mention this every time because people don't realize this happens, okay? You can order from places that will guarantee you not to get tariffs. There are companies that do this all the time. SkyZone is one of them. If you order SkyZone goggles directly from SkyZone, they will promise you not to charge you tariffs, and you will get the pre-tariff price if you order directly. But it's very difficult to compare those prices because who's going to get them all the time? And is that loophole going to change? And like, you know, that's the difficulty, right?
I had an order outstanding from a Chinese vendor, and they said, you can prepay the tariffs. And then Trump went 100% tariffs. And they were like, hey, look, you prepaid the tariffs, but if he just imposes a 100% tariff after we ship it, you're going to have to pay that. So like nobody can be 100% sure, I think is your point. But you can try.
Right now, $339 for an 040 Pro at SkyZone, and they claim you won't get charged tariffs, right? $499 for an 04X Pro, and they claim you won't get charged tariffs.
Really?
Do your own research. Yeah, do your own research and look at what shipping costs you. But I think it's important to understand that like there are ways to do this that are cheaper. Just as an example right now, Pyrodrone $660 for the 04X Pro versus $760 from Get FPV. Just in country, just for normal retailers, you're going to pay different prices. Okay. And the other issue is HD0 goggles, I think, are going to be less easy to get on foreign country sites that are not going to charge you tariffs, right?
No. Yeah, no, HD0, the HD0 goggles are only sold through the HD0 store, and they won't ship into the US.
Right. So unfortunately, that makes it so that they end up being more expensive because of the way they're acquired to users who can avoid tariffs in ways that are pseudo-legal.
Very good point. Yeah, if you could get the 04X for $500 or the 040 for $350, that's very compelling compared to the HD0 for $700, $800. Very compelling. Just to close the loop on that, the 040, which is the cheaper goggle, basically only does 720p. And it has a widescreen OLED. So it's got a widescreen OLED and displays 720p, not 1080. Now, if you're doing analog, that doesn't matter. But if you were trying to do input from a walk snail ground station, then you might miss the 1080p. You might want that 1080p. The 04X has a 1920 by 1080 with 100 FPS frame rate. What's the frame rate on the 040? It does 60 FPS. No, come on. It doesn't say. I think it's also 100 FPS. I'm not sure. But can do 1080p. That's a difference between them. No. That's wrong. It's 1280 by 960. I thought that was wrong. That's the difference. I was surprised to see it, but I was just reading it off. And my mind went, that's wrong, but I just skimmed it. The 04X has a 4:3 resolution, 1280 by 960, and can do 1920 by 1080. This is just objectively wrong. Well, this also says 1280. Shut up. Oh. I'm sorry, but I have to get this right. I have to look at the SkyZone site. SkyZone's website will surely be correct. 1024 by 768 OLED screen. Well, surely that's accurate, right? Who would know better? 1280 by 960. Yes, okay. The 04X is a 1280 by 960 4:3 resolution screen. The 040 has a 1024 by 768 widescreen, basically 720p. No? 1024 by 768? Is that widescreen? Oh, I'm really... No, that's also 4:3. All right, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's lower resolution. That's for sure.
No, yeah, you were looking at the 040, not 040 Pro specification. They're both on that same page. There's two blocks of text.
Oh.
Scroll down.
The 040? Where's the 040 Pro?
Keep going.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's 1280 by 720. The 040 Pro is widescreen. The 040 is 4:3. Phew. Well, for analog, it sounds like the 040 is the one you want, because for analog, you want a 4:3 screen. But only 38 degree FOV is not that great. Yeah. All right, well, cool. I'm glad we clarified all that. Let's move on before I embarrass myself further. I have job security. Yes, it does take me a while to figure these things out, but then by the time I make the video, I figure them out and I give them to you. It's only when you get to see the sausage being made when I'm doing a live stream. I'm like, well, it's got the 1024, but no, wait, it's got the, see, I'm just as confused as you are. Okay. What S-bus problem occurs with the O4 and ELRS?
He means it's because you got a drone that has the S-bus wire attached. The reason is because in the DJI can use a DJI radio. So for some reason on the O4 and the O3, they output a signal on that even if you don't have a DJI radio bound. So that blocks the signal from other things on that UART. So the reason is not, it's just an S-bus problem because something else is wired to the same UART.
It's really the flight controller designer who's at fault, in my opinion. Although I understand why they did what they did. Look at the pinout diagram for the SpeedyBee F405. And by the way, I just picked this one because it's a popular one, and I know it's affected by this issue. Hang on. Got to scroll to the right location. Almost there. Okay. Look at the plug for the DJI Air unit. Here we go. Here's the DJI Air unit. Did I scroll too much? Come on. I want it bigger. There it is. Okay. So the S-bus wire, this yellow wire, goes to R2. It's a little hard to read that. I don't know if you can read that. Here, we'll zoom in slightly. The S-bus wire goes to R2 on the flight controller. That means that that wire is connected to UART 2. Great. If we look at the top of the flight controller, you can see that they show the receiver. The receiver, they show it wired to UART 2. And the idea here is that if you're not using DJI, why not give you access to UART 2? If you're going to direct solder your receiver, solder it to UART 2. If you're going to plug in DJI, put the receiver on UART 2. It would be silly to put UART 2 in that plug and nowhere else. Because then if you're not using that plug, because you're not using DJI, you've just wasted a UART. Right? But the problem is that if you plug the DJI Air unit in and you put the receiver on UART 2, now you have two things on UART 2. You have the S-bus wire and you have the receiver, and they are conflicted. So you just have to know that you can only use each UART for one thing at a time. Now, as Blunty points out, the weird thing about this is that DJI could say, if there is nothing, if I'm not bound to a DJI RC controller, then don't output anything on the S-bus wire, and then it would just work. But they don't do that. Even when you're not using the DJI RC controller, there is signal on that S-bus wire that conflicts with your Crossfire or whatever, your Express ELRS. So the workaround is to take out that yellow wire, and so that it is not connected to UART 2, and then everything is fine. Or just use a different UART, assuming you don't need that UART for something. Happy birthday, Joseph. Thank you for €5. It's Joseph's birthday. Also, congratulations to Crom, who is the newest moderator on the JB Discord. Which I know is what everyone's hoping for. Everyone's set out like, ooh, how do I get there? Just be a cool person and then a nice person, contribute to the server, and eventually someone's like, hey, we should make that guy a moderator. Like once every 5 years, someone gets promoted to moderator. After flashing my flight controller, the board reads no gyro and is flashing orange-yellow with the red lights on. You flashed the wrong target. You flashed the wrong target to the flight controller. I don't know what flight controller you have, and I don't know what target you should have flashed, but the takeaway is you flashed the wrong target. You got to find out what the right target is, and you got to flash the right target.
You can email jb@joshuabardwell.com if you need more assistance.
That's true. You could do that. I'll try. I'll help you. If you help me understand exactly what flight controller you have, I could probably figure out what target it is. Yeah. Would you take the O4 Lite over the Caddx Vista, says Mark FPV, without counting camera FOV? Yes, absolutely. The O4 Lite is, if you took FOV out of the equation, which is one of the major reasons not to go with the O4 Lite. Yeah, the O4 Lite has great range, great performance. I like the onboard recording. Just the O4 in general is a much more mature technology than the Vista. The camera doesn't have quite as good low light sensitivity as some of the Vista cameras, and the durability is significantly less. So I would definitely do the reinforcements on it to help reinforce the camera connector and stuff to try to improve the durability. But I would take the O4 Lite over the Vista. Yeah, I think I would. Especially because Vistas are harder and harder to get. What's your thoughts on using an analog head tracking system? Why do I only see people using head tracking with digital? So for those who don't know, a head tracking system is one where you have a accelerometer in your goggles. It could be actually built into the goggles. Many goggles have a built-in head tracker. Or you have like a third-party module that you stick to your goggles or side of your head. And then when you move your head left, right, up, down, the camera is on a gimbal that tracks your head movement. So you could be flying and you could just go and look down, and it's very immersive. People have been doing head tracking with analog cameras for a decade. You say, why do I only see people doing it on digital? I don't know, but like analog head trackers have been around for 15 years, maybe more. So like if you see people doing it on digital, it's just because digital is more popular today. Yeah.
You want to take that next question if you know? Because it's also
Which
a head
one?
tracker.
Which one?
Just the next one in the list there.
Oh, this one. I am trying to set up a head tracker with Express ELRS between the head tracker and my TX. Can I use the backpack for the head tracker and map to channel 7 and 8 or use trainer with internal EP2? Oof.
He said it. He also
yeah.
said and or which is better way to do this.
Oh, yeah. So it sure seems like the HD0 goggles have an Express ELRS backpack and a head tracker. It sure seems like that's the kind of thing backpack could do. But does it do it? I mean, it could do it, but does it do it? Oh, nope. No. So the question is, has someone already written the software to do this? Oh, someone has done it. Ryan Quellet has done it. Tutorial for head tracking here. Bingo! Thank you, HD0. Okay, we'll close that. Okay, so here's what you want. Yes, you can do head tracking with ELRS backpack. Here is the tutorial how. I'm going to put it in the chat. And I'm going to put it in the Discord. It's a 23-minute video. There you go. There's some. See how he's looking left, right? And the idea is that normally when you do head tracker, you will have a wire going from your goggles to your hand to your hand controller, and that's how the head tracking information gets to the aircraft. Badass. That's badass. It's so much more immersive to be able to look left and right. It's so good. And, you know, with a multi-rotor, it's like, well, I just turn the multi-rotor and look wherever I want. But on an airplane, it's so frustrating sometimes to be in a turn and not be able to look into the turn very easily. So head tracking makes a lot of sense on an airplane. There you go. You can see it looking up, down, left, right. Yeah, badass. And you can see it's wireless. He just no connection between the goggles and the controller. This is one of my favorite things about HD0 among many things. HD0's sort of integration with open source technologies like Express LRS and the backpack functionality. Like the HD0 goggles can do this, and I'm not saying that no other goggle can do this, but with the HD0 goggles, they've just made it all work. It's pretty slick. All right. Oh, sadly, he says he's using the internal head tracker. Why would you not just use the internal head tracker? But okay, you want to use the backpack on an external module. I mean, I assume that it can be done. I don't know though exactly how. I'm afraid that's the limit of how much help I can offer. Honestly, message Ryan Quellet. He'll probably get you started the right direction. He'll probably just help you. That's the kind of good dude he is. Hello from Brazil. I love your channel. Thank you for 2790 reais. And Elena Cerej. I've a G2 and O3 for freestyle and O4 Lite for 2S whoops, but I want something for 1S. Should I go with the O4 Pro for 320 USD or HD0 Box Pro for 400 USD to unlock HD0? I think that if you are looking for a 1S drone, and then definitely you should be looking at HD0. And if you're looking at HD0, then I would take the Box Pro over the 040 Pro. Because the 040 Pro are analog goggles. They're not going to give you access to HD0. The Box Pro are box goggles, but they're still pretty good goggles. And if you're going with 1S, analog is okay, but HD0 is better. All right. We're catching up. Blunty, is the chat a little slower today? We don't have, it feels like I'm catching up with the questions. Weird.
Yes.
Oh, well.
Maybe we have other questions, but you know.
You're filtering them because they're terrible?
Well, no, you just skipped, you know how it goes.
Oh, they're still there. They're still in the chat.
Yeah.
I'll see if any of them. Tornock said, "Hey JB, you mentioned in one of your ELS videos that going through USB serial for ELRS updates is a pain in the butt. Can you expand on this?" I actually have changed my opinion about that. So what you're talking about is where you flash the Express LRS receiver by plugging into USB on the drone, and you do it via Betaflight pass-through. It used to be that it didn't work reliably. Let's just say that. You would try to flash it and something would go wrong and it wouldn't flash. And there were all these, you had to have telemetry turned off on the drone. Sometimes the receiver would power up and it wouldn't go into bootloader mode. And sometimes there were driver issues. Suffice it to say that you would try to flash via Betaflight pass-through and it wouldn't work. I have since given Betaflight pass-through another chance and have had it work reliably almost all the time. So I actually would revise that opinion. Right now, if I have an Express LRS receiver that's soldered into a flight controller, I would try to flash it using Betaflight pass-through before I would use Wi-Fi. And it has worked a lot. It's super helpful, especially if you're in an environment where Wi-Fi is not reliable. Here's what I mean by that. Let's say you're at a race. Do you understand that if you're at a race, lots of people potentially are plugged in. They're working on their drone or something. Their receiver is powered up and their receiver has gone into Wi-Fi mode. So when you bring up your computer and you connect to the Express LRS RX Wi-Fi network, you actually have no idea whose receiver you're connecting to. Maybe it's yours, maybe it's someone else's, you just don't know. Okay? In that kind of environment, let's say you're in a classroom environment, like you're a high school teacher or a middle school teacher you're working with, and you've got 10 kids, 12 kids, 15 kids in the room. They've all got their own drone. All of them are plugged into the computer, and you're showing them how to configure Betaflight. I don't know. I have no idea what a high school classroom actually looks like these days. In my head, that's what it looks like. And you're like, now it's time to bind our receivers, kids. Oh, do you see that you're going to have to pause the whole class? Everybody powers down, and you bind one kid, and you bind the next kid, and you bind the next kid. But if they all plug in USB and they flash through Betaflight pass-through, they can all flash their drone at the same time, give it a bind phrase, and it could be good to go. There are real advantages to flashing via USB pass-through. In the past, long story short, it just often failed to work and was annoying. Now I've found that it works pretty consistently. I don't know what changed. My XT30 connector only works when plugged in halfway. Cut it off and solder a new one on. Any suggestions on DJI replacements in the US for someone who's looking to build a 5-inch? Analog. Or Walksnail. Walksnail is actually closer to DJI than analog. But analog is just like the F it, I'm going home. I'll just go back to analog. Nothing is as good as DJI is. How bad is the idea to use one 1800 kV motor and three 1950s on a 6S build? It doesn't matter. Basically, the whole drone will act like it has 1800 kV motors. You'll have a slight reduction in your top end power. I would put the 1800 kV motor on the front if you can, because the back motors usually have to spin faster to make thrust in forward flight. The back motors are receiving turbulent air from the front motors, and so they have to work harder to make the same amount of thrust. So if you had the choice, I would put the lower kV motor in the front, since the back motors are going to have to spin faster anyway. But ultimately, just the whole quad will act like it has 1800 kV motors on it, because once that 1800 kV motor maxes out, the others can't go any faster without destabilizing the quad. Are 0802 motors good for 65 millimeter whoops? Yes. 0802 is a good size for 65 millimeter. I think that 75 millimeters usually use bigger motors. Let's check. I'm pretty sure, but I'm going to double check. Like someone could be running 0802s on 75 millimeters, even though it's not ideal. Here's a 75 millimeter drone from Beta FPV. Oh my God, I'm trying to use your website. Stop making pop-ups. Air 75 0802 23,000 kV. Okay, 0802 19,500 kV. There you go. Maybe it's fine. That's almost exactly the motor that you asked for. Now this is the Air 75.
You know how I can tell I'm old in this hobby already?
Why?
People are acting like 0702 isn't for 65 millimeter. Guys, relax.
0702 is great for 65 millimeter.
No, 0802 I'm saying. We used 0802 since
2020. 0802 was the standard for 65 millimeter. 0702 didn't exist.
Yeah, just relax.
No, okay, so I'm not crazy. Here we go. I was going to say 11 millimeter motors, but for 75 millimeter quads, but I didn't want to. I was like, I was just hesitant enough that I didn't want to sound dumb if I turned out to be wrong. So here is the Meteor 75 Pro. Oh, but the Pro has the 45 millimeter props. That's not the right one to compare. The Meteor 75 Pro with 45 millimeter props has 1102 motors. Let me find just a Meteor 75. Here's the Meteor 75. Meteor 75 is 0802. Okay, so, oh no, but it used to be 1102. Okay. So it looks like 75 millimeters these days is mostly on 0802, but has been 1102 in the past. And as soon as you make the props a little bit bigger, it's 1102. So a heavy 75 millimeter or like a 45 millimeter prop, you want 1102, but 0802 is okay for a 75 millimeter prop. It's not an absolute deal breaker. For 65 millimeter, I would do 0802 or 0702. And the current trend for 65 millimeter is to be a much higher KV, like 25, 30, or even higher KV. Although for a beginner, I think that's not a big deal. You absolutely can run a 65 millimeter on those motors, even though that's not the standard today. 3 or 4 years ago, that was the standard. It'll be fine. Gadget RC wants to know, nope, what's still missing to do a build with all U.S. manufactured parts? Camera? Frame? U.S. manufactured frame is the easiest in the world. Anybody can cut carbon. The camera is hard because nobody makes the sensors except Sony, more or less. Like, big oversimplification. There, you know, like if you said I want to make motors in the U.S. and companies like Unusual Machines have done that. If you say I want to make motors in the U.S., it's not hard. You buy the magnets from China because that's the only place to get them at an economical price. You buy the copper wire, etc. You get some winding machines. You get some machines to balance the motors. You get some machines to place the magnets. Maybe you even mill the bells, although probably you're going to buy the bells pre-milled from somewhere else. But you could do all that stuff. You get the motors. You assemble the motors in America. Yay, you have an American motor. You could easily mill the bells. You probably aren't going to manufacture the wire in America, although theoretically you could. So, like, the question is always, like, what counts as U.S. manufactured? And generally what counts as U.S. manufactured these days is we bought parts from everywhere else, and then we assembled them in America. And then sometimes you're actually manufacturing the raw parts in America from ingredients that probably were sourced from somewhere else. But the hard one these days, the camera is hard because basically Sony makes all the sensors and probably some other companies, but a lot of it is Sony sensors. The receiver for the Express ELRS receivers, they kind of all have to have an ESP32 chip, and that is kind of like a dead end, like in terms of American production. You just no American source for an ESP32 chip. The video transmitter, an analog video transmitter, is always going to have that rich wave chip in it. There's no alternative for that, really. Flight controllers and ESCs are not hard to manufacture in the US. But the thing is, if you're okay with the rich wave chip, if you're okay with the ESP32 chip, if you're okay with the Sony sensor, then absolutely you can assemble those parts in the United States. But not a lot of people are doing it because the motivation for U.S. manufacturing is largely NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. NDAA compliance means that you can sell to the military and sell to the government. And they want to pay for NDAA. They are legally required to pay extra for NDAA compliance. Well, they're not legally required to pay extra, but they're required to buy NDAA parts, and so people can charge more for them because it's a captive audience. But the problem is that ESP32 chip that's in an Express ELRS receiver, it is specifically not allowed to be in NDAA hardware. And that's why currently, as far as I know, No one makes an NDAA compliant ELRS receiver. Several companies are working on alternatives to the ESP32 so that they can make an NDAA ELRS receiver. But as far as I know right now, no one has done it. And so likewise with the rich wave chip that's in video transmitters. I believe that chip also specifically is not allowed to be in NDAA stuff. And so an NDAA video transmitter doesn't exist. So as far as other U.S. manufactured, if it's not NDAA compliant, there is no incentive to manufacture it in the U.S. because U.S. hobbyists aren't going to pay more. Oh, it's manufactured in the U.S., it's assembled in the U.S., and it costs you 25% more. I'll just buy it from China. I don't care. So that's what the hobbyists say, not what I say. Blunty is telling me that Modal AI has a NDAA compliant, Blue UAS compatible ELRS receiver. What does it use instead of the ESP32 chip? STM32F103 MCU. Wow. There you go. So they've rewritten Express LRS to run on the STM32F1. Wow.
Isn't there an STM32 already? Because weren't the original PPRXs STM?
Oh, that's true. They just pulled that. But I guess there's nothing stopping someone from going back and just merging that code back in. That's a good point. Interesting. That's very interesting. I forgot about that. Way back when, the original ELRS receivers used the F1 chip. And then they moved to the ESP32. And yeah, because the ESP32 has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in. That's part of the reason why it can't be NDAA because of the communications technology. The F1 doesn't have that. So do you think they just pulled in the old F1 code? That has, just recently they dropped that code. They were like, we're not going to maintain it anymore. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know either. Yeah, but yeah, there you go.
Also,
$90 for an NDAA compatible ELRS receiver. How about that?
There's also, Tanner Ewing, the guy who made the flight test remote ID module and who made the Rotor Brave flight controller, created something called Blue LRS, which is a Blue SUAS version of Express LRS. And he also is building something under Ewing Aerospace for NDAA compliant version. He's got one for sale on his website right now for $30 for a pre-order, shipping in December.
That one I was aware of because of the ties to Rotor Riot. I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that anyone was selling a finished one. I knew several companies were working on one. Blue LRS. Rigorous supply chain control and documentation. Yep. Built for secure hardware. It originates. It is for new validation layers, firmware signing, and documentation support. Oh my God. Kill me. Just kill me.
So yeah, they're working on it.
Yeah. I don't want to live in this world, Blunty. Digital signing, critical security, supply chain. Anyway. Billy Bardwell says, I have the DJI V2 goggles. They have the AKK diversity module in it before your vid came out. However, I want to switch to digital, so I need a VTX that's compatible and I can use on my V2s. You're screwed. The V2 goggles work with the Vista/RunCam Link and the O3. That's it. Now, if you can find an O3 for sale or you can find a Vista Link VTX for sale, go for it. But they're not made anymore. You would have to get them on the secondhand market. reading those web pages with all the corporate speak really sucked the life out of me. You can find Vista new BMF Spade? Where? Where can you find Vista's new BMF Spade? I don't think you can. So, but I mean, I'm excited to be proven wrong. If you show me, okay, show me where. Where can you find new Vistas? I'm genuinely curious. No, don't say RunCam maybe. Don't make an assertion and then not back it up. RunCam maybe? I can guess just as good as you can. Like, tell me a fact. Don't just, like, let's just half-ass it. RunCam link. AliExpress. Can you buy it? Buy now? 1,000 available? Really? This product can't be shipped to your address. They won't ship them to the United States. Shut up. Oh, God. Oh, nope. Look, it's a lie. This product is no longer available. It's sold out, or the store discontinued selling it. It's a lie. Let me change the ship to just to be sure. Hold on. Ship to Spain. Oh, nope. Added to cart. Okay, it's because I was in the US. Oh, nope. There we go. How many can I add? How many can I add to cart? No. It's a lie. It's a lie.
You currently only have picked the camera, just so you know. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, well, that's, yeah, okay. That also makes sense. Thank you for pointing that out, Blenty. Nope. I see. The VTX is not available. Great. Yeah, it's not available. Okay, I was right. I love being right. RunCam link from, how about RunCam? myfpvstore.com. You can't get them. You can't get them, guys. You think you can get them, but when you actually try and buy them, you can't get them. Ready? Buy now. Let's see. Buy now. Oh, can you get it? Oh, maybe. It looks like maybe you can. Well, maybe they're still around. Interesting. Oh, I can't put any more. Is it just one? In stock. Add to cart. Yeah, oh, we have one in stock. Yeah, okay, so they have one. Nobody actually has, like, I mean, okay, I'm not surprised you can find onesie twosie. Nobody actually has stock of them. If you feel like that's moving the goalpost, I accept that, you know. But my point when I say you can't buy them anymore, it doesn't mean like literally you won't find some store with one on the shelf. I've checked this before. I don't think you can buy them from RunCam. RunCam Link Wasp Nano. RunCam Wasp. RunCam Link Wasp. Okay. Add to cart? No. Is it because I'm in the US and they're specifically blocking me from within the US? I don't know. Anyway, enough said. I mean, that's what you need to do. That's what you need to do if you want to get the V2. All right. If you are trying to use Betaflight to change band and channel, keep in mind that Betaflight only shows you the band and channel that Betaflight wants the VTX to be on. If Betaflight is not talking to the VTX, like, think about this. Imagine you're at a restaurant and you say to the server, I'd like a steak. And the server says, yep, got it. And then the server does not go to the kitchen and put your order in. You say to the server, hey, what did I order? And they say, you ordered a steak. But the kitchen has not received the message. The kitchen is not working on the steak. That's what's happening when you set the band and channel in Betaflight and the flight controller shows you race 6 in the OSD. If you haven't set up the VTX correctly, that information is not getting to the VTX. So you need to go into the video transmitter tab and look and whether you see device ready true in the video transmitter tab. And that will tell you that the flight controller is talking to the VTX. If not, the flight controller is not talking to the VTX, and then you need to figure out, you have a wiring problem or something like that. Or your ports tab is configured incorrectly. Thank you, Grio, for a £2 super chat. Kaio Mini is sold out. How can I build one? I don't know. Is there anyone who's made an Edge TX radio emulate a controller or joystick on PC to use it in a non-simulator game? Yes. Look. Okay. This is not special for simulators. This is just a joystick. So I'm going to power it up. And I'm going to plug it in. And I'm going to choose joystick. Now I'm going to go to my computer and set up USB game controllers. Guess what? There it is. Radio Master GX12 joystick. Properties. It's just a joystick, guys. It doesn't care. I can use this in any game that I want. I just need to set up the axes correctly. Right? And in fact, there is a new, more advanced joystick mode in recent versions of Edge TX that let you configure the axes, custom configure the axes for use with other games. I haven't actually explored it. I just learned about it while I was working on my Edge TX tutorial. No. There we go. Yeah. So, here is more information about ways to configure the buttons and joysticks to make it work better with different games. But ultimately, there's nothing you need to do to get your controller to work as a joystick because it already does that. You just need to configure the axes correctly. I'll give you this this link in the chat. If you're interested. Oh. Has anyone been able to get user 1 to turn off the VTX power in Betaflight 4.5? You have to, the flight controller has to have a power switch built in. I don't think the Xylo F4 has a power switch built in. I'm not sure about the Pavo 2.0. Simply enabling mode user 1 doesn't switch the VTX on and off unless the flight controller has that hardware to switch the power. Most flight controllers do not. So for example, the Maytech H743 Slim, the TBS Lucid, they have a pad that's switchable and controlled by user 1. You can't just take any old flight controller, add a user 1 mode, and expect it to switch the power. That's probably what's going on. Okay. All right, guys, we are coming to the end of the stream. I will be streaming tomorrow at 8 p.m. in my usual time, and next weekend as well. 2 weekends in a row. Wow. What must be going on in Bardwell's life that he's able to stream 2 weekends in a row? I know. It's nice. My family is very happy that I'm home, right? No, they say they're ready for me to leave again. Oh, well, so be it. Well, at least you guys love me. That's going to do it for this stream. 8 p.m. What time zone? Go look. Go look on my YouTube channel. It'll show you. If you go YouTube Joshua Bardwell, you don't need to worry about time zones, etc. YouTube Joshua Bardwell, go to live. Here are all of my upcoming live streams, and you can even click notify me to let you know at the stream scheduled time, and it will show the time in your local time zone. Okay? So that's what you should do. It's Eastern time, but just do that. And that's going to do it for today, though. See you next time, everybody.